Swift, what you could call an ego board, but it's probably just my history. I live in the UK, so yes, I have travelled this distance to be here to talk to you. It's worth it, though. Background is mainframe, so IBM, Honeywell. Unix is HP, UX, AX, Solaris. Linux, yes, the usual things, you can read that. If there's been a hardware product over the last 45 years, I probably worked on it. Or it's fallen on my foot as I tried to avoid it. I'm retired now, I am a very old man. And I worked for numerous companies, manufacturers, and a wide set of things. So I did Unix, I did security, did managed services. I was that horrible bloke who got parachuted into your company to tell you how badly you were doing things. And in the last part of my career, I did data center build and design. So sometimes I was doing computational fluid dynamics, and sometimes I was slamming servers into cabs. So done a lot. So we're going to talk about low impact monitoring. It may be low impact, but it's got high content. My hobby lab design, because I've done this a lot. My home hobby lab is built and designed, frankly, to data center standards. And I will go on about that quite a lot. Bit of futures and blue sky, and then questions. It might be an idea to pay attention. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to ask you a question. He who gets, or she, I apologise, he or she who gets the answer right gets a whole Nagios server in their pocket.
All right.
Yeah, so worth paying attention. So, what do you do when you retire for IT? In my case, I got bored, so I built a scoreboard for my local cricket club, which each one of those little bits of wood is, on the other side, LED numbers. So I did the TTL design, put it all together, and they're about, each one's got about 100 solder joins on it because I did it by hand. That occupied me for a while, and then I bought a ridiculous sports car.
Does it shoot flames?
It's only got 3 wheels. It's meant to have, before you ask. And if you ever want to put a smile on your face, you should take one of these out, because doing over 100 miles an hour with your bottom about 2 inches off the ground, while surrounded by a very thin piece of aluminium and nothing else, enlivens the heart, I think. It's got no windows, it's got no doors, it's got no safety features whatsoever, really, apart from the seatbelt, which is just there to, if they find your body, it's next to the car. Or, if you're me, you build a data center in your garage. Now, this is by probably the safest thing to do, in my mind. And this is what I'd opted for. Oh, and my wife may have had something to do with that as well. So here's a schematic of my data center-ish at the moment. So I've got some big kit, some small kit, and some, quite frankly, revolting kit. It all started off because I thought, I'm going to get bored. Right, let's build myself, because I was a VM person, a VMware system. So I built myself a VMware system. And then I thought, no, that's very straightforward. Everybody knows about VMware. Let's get into Xen server. So I put on a Xen server as well. And this was all humming away in my garage, and I thought, actually, I'd best do something with all this kit. The wife's getting nervous. So two of the nodes, the HA cluster, I'm going to point to it, ran for about 18 months, nearly 2 years, doing a thing called folding at home. When the COVID epidemic came out, there was an effort to try and break down genetic strands to try and get a better understanding what was going on, and it was just passed around the whole world. So I left 2 of my servers running folding at home for a year and a half. At one point, I did manage to get myself escalated to the top 10 processors on this. The thing about folding at home is you do all these things. Well, I don't. That does. But you never really find out if you actually made a solid contribution. You just processed many, many millions of options. But fun. There is another cluster. You may not have seen it before. It's a Raspberry Pi cluster. But no, before you get excited, it's a VMware Raspberry Pi cluster. Not many people run ESX on Raspberry Pis, but I do. It's less power intensive than the other guys, I'll tell you. So there's a little cluster, and there are other bits and pieces. I mean, the thing we're really here to talk about is, of course, the Nagios server up here, which it sits there. There's another one that says Nagios there, and that's because it's Mod Gearman. Back in the day when I was younger and had a job, Raspberry Pis couldn't support the workload if you were hitting lots of things, so Mod Gearman was a way out. So it's still stuck there. I don't use it anymore. There's a VPN server, there's a CCTV server, all on Pis, and then there's a wide range of ridiculous equipment. So I've got a Microserver G8, I've got, yes, all right. Somebody asked me last night, what's the oldest piece of kit I've got? And it is the Sunblade, 1981. Still running, just. And some things that may not look obvious. Switches, servers, and a couple of other pieces of kit that not many people use. One of which is this guy here, the ATS. It's a transfer switch. When you care about your systems, you find that sometimes you find things that have only got one power input. Typically, it's comms kit. You sit there with a power brick and you go, that's really handy. Now I can plug that into the mains, but then when the mains goes off, it's gone off as well. The ATS is a device that takes in two independent power supplies and switches them within microseconds between another set of sockets on the back. So anything you've got that only has one single power input, you can still run in a survivable mode. As soon as the power goes, oh, it's back up. Well, it doesn't actually go down most of the time. So there's things like that that sort of live there. And everybody has a KVM, keyboard video mouse thing. Don't need them so much these days if you've got big servers, because there's a completely separate network that does lights out monitoring. So, but physically, that's how it stacks. Now this is a conventional data center layout. Top of rack switch goes up here. You bung your servers in the bottom, and the stuff in the middle just gets cooked. A lot of the kit I've got here doesn't generate enough, well, too much heat anyway. Normal practice would be to try and leave air gaps, but don't need to. It's not so bad you can fry eggs on the top of the cab. Although, no, this one is, I wish my cab was back like this. Now this is cheating in a way. This is a cab I installed, one of 19 for a bank, and this is lovely. I had time to do this. Yeah, I had a big cab, I could put cable management in, I could run everything in a decent way. I didn't have bend curves were acceptable, etc., etc. Now I'm going to introduce you to the word oxymoron. Never, in my opinion, ever use a cable tie to tie a cable. Okay, if you think about a modern cable, copper, it's probably got a cross-shaped piece of plastic in the middle that runs all the way like to the cable. It's got little tiny cables that are wrapped in silver foil to stop crosstalk. And then what do you do with a cable tie? You crunch it up. And then, when you crunched it, a month later you go back with a pair of wire cutters and you go, I've got to put something else in this cable run. And you go up it, snipping away. There's no danger in that, is there? So, never use cable ties for cabling. The other thing that's my bit of wisdom. This is copper. This is pretty straightforward. There's a bit of fibre. When you bring fibre, you're going to get this lovely fibre cable and it'll come in a little plastic bag and you'll think, yay, this is good. And you tear the top off, and it's got two little covers on the fibre, and you go, yay. You yank the covers off, you slam it in. Don't do that. Clean them. Get the isopropyl alcohol out and clean them. It may be manufactured, but it may be manufactured in a particularly filthy environment. Or those little rubber caps that go on the end, they just contain loads of dust. So just make it easy for yourself. But as I say, my back of my cap doesn't quite look like that. I just done that. I'll finish up with one little piece here. You might notice there's a cable that comes out of the cab into the door. And the reason for that is the doors are remotely controlled. They are locked and released by someone else. Banks. Who thought it? So when you slam it all up, you've either got a little pass card thing, or you have to ring the desk to say, please can you open the back of cab E7? I need to do something. And that's a change control. So none of that just ripping stuff open and slamming wires in. Unfortunately, in my data center, of course, that's exactly what I do. So I've got this kit. What exactly am I monitoring? Well, virtual machine systems, VMware, we talked about, Xen server, we talked about. Oh, look, Proxmox and Nutanix. Well, given that the Broadcom Ferrari about VMware, I thought perhaps I should look at other systems because it's going to be of use at some point. And so I've got a Proxmox and a Nutanix server. The Proxmox is doing okay. Nutanix requires rather more equipment than I've actually got at the moment, but I'll get there. Oops, bounced. Two, good Lord. No, go back again. Back and back. Hooray! Yes. So what am I monitoring? What have I got all this kit? What am I doing with it? Oh, right. I'm running two IBM mainframe systems because I can, and it's what I used to do for a living. I've got an AIX system way back in the day when Nagios started. I actually did one of the original ports of Nagios to AIX. So I like to keep my hand in. I've got a Honeywell mainframe system running, because you do. Although I'm not overly motivated by Baltics, I'm looking for something else really. And then a PDP-11. Oh, come on, you might as well have the set. Whilst you're going at it, running, I think, and arbitrarily tape libraries. Now, some of you, if not nearly all of you, will not be old enough to know about tape libraries, where we had big strips of iron filings on plastic that we spun round and recorded stuff. But it used to be the only reliable mass storage medium. So I still play with those. With that one. Let's try and hit this once. Yay. In case you didn't know what an IBM terminal looks like, it's like that. When I started working on IBM, that's roughly the model I got, a 3278 Model 2, complete with the, what made it Model 2? I have an upper and lower case switch. Hey, that was good. Yeah. And the MBS I run is 3.8. Now the reason for that is, way back in the day, IBM accidentally gave away the source of MBS for that level. It's in the public domain, you don't need a license to run it, and there it sits. What do we do next? VM, exactly the same again. What I've got here is a VM running under an MVS emulator, even better. And this is the real product, actually. If it starts with a Z, it's a real product. But VM CMS was also gifted. He's extremely generous, or possibly just they made a mistake. There's my AIX system running NTOP. I didn't really know I could do this. I used to have a physical server. It was huge, which I was paid which my employer bought for me so I could support a particularly ridiculous software product. I'm retired now, so I don't need a huge server, but what I do need is to keep my hand in mucking around, so that's what I do with it. Multics, yes. On the left-hand side, facing from your viewpoint, is what I know as a DPS 870M, which is not a very powerful mainframe. The big thing in black in the middle with a gentleman staring at the paper thinking what the hell's going on is known as a system control console. Lovely. And in the background you can see some old style 400 takeovers, I think. But the thing I really want to point out to you is that this is a really magic system because it's got 2 card readers. that was big stuff.
We move this down a little bit. We're getting a lot of signal interference. Well, that should be a good recording.
So, and that's one of the things I'm emulating as well. The problem I have with this guy is that he was written to be monitored by a different machine. So he runs totally hardware with walls around him, and any monitoring data he tips out to in the day was a PDP-8. And the PDP-8 said, oh yeah, he's got memory, he's got some disk trouble. So it's quite fun monitoring him. Mentioned this before, my PDP ticking away. You might know just sitting on a shelf in my office. And the reason for that is it's not really a PDP then. It's a Raspberry Pi running the emulation. But I've gone to the trouble of getting the front panel with all the switches built. And there you go. And there you go. Here's the. No, you can't be exciting with a virtual tape library, can you? Really, it thinks it's got tapes, and things think they write to it, which they do. Now, here's another bit of worldly advice. Have an IP address manager. I know it's a hobby machine. Okay, it doesn't matter if IP address clashing. Oh yes, it does. And that's nothing worse than being at midnight, thinking I'm just about to make this live. I need an address range. Oh, I don't know if I've got one to spare. And then you start going around all your pieces of paper, going, so yeah, bounced in, back will be good. And as an example of what it does, this is my home DHCP range, which frankly hasn't got any room in it. By the time you've whapped in your Sonos music system, your Ring doorbell, several PCs as it happens, I've run out basically. But it's good though, because when your visitors turn up and say, oh, can I get on the Wi-Fi? You can say, yeah, you can't get an IP address though. So, yes. But it's just the concept of, it's a thing that makes your life so much easier. And that's running as a container under Ubuntu, I think, at the moment. Now then, I'll try not to give too much away. Right. This is a monitor. This is a real, I say live, it was once, Nagios small monitor. So its whole purpose in life was to provide Nagios monitoring, be an email relay, and a VPN termination point. And if you ever get into this position, if you're installing brand new equipment into a data center, the customer doesn't want that linked to their live systems. You know, they think, we might plug the right thing, wrong thing in the wrong hole. But invariably, all your experts are sitting in their comfy home offices all over the country, if you're lucky. And they're not coming down to the data center because that's 4 hours drive. So you need to be able to let them in and do things in a positive way. And that's a box about the size of my hand, sat in a couple of data centers. You might notice it's console 2, it would have been, console 1 did exist, but I've used it for something else. And people would say, I need to get on to the net console port on a switch. Okay, here you go. Here's a user ID and password, expires 24 hours. When you log on via the VPN, you will get access to a physical port. And it saved so much grief. And he also indicated to me when I found out that people were doing changes in my data center, without me knowing about it, which I'm very unhappy. At one point, I did find you've got to have standards. Yeah? And I found that some people were just cabling things up across cabs. Oh, no. So after the second time I'd sent that particular team a picture of me cutting the wire and showing them the two ends, they raised change controls for that kind of behaviour after. But you don't notice, what? A port's gone live. How did that go live? And the email relay is just a bit of a curiosity, really. When you've got all your consultants putting all this gear in, one of the things they will test is email alerts from the actual physical equipment. Well, they're not going to be using the customer's one because you ain't let them in. So you've got to find some way of absolutely being sure that the alerts work. So point it at that for the time being. And try and remember to point it somewhere else after it's gone live. The second picture is a Raspberry Pi in you'll never take me alive mode. In as much as this is a battery clamped to the top of the Raspberry Pi to keep it going. You yank all the power supplies out, he doesn't care. It's going to run on this. And if you yank all the power supplies out, it's going to send me a text message to tell you you've done that, and I might want to do something about it. Yeah, good fun. You shouldn't really need it because you should be running in a data center or have dual power supplies, you should have UPS, but trust nobody. Always been my motto. And so that's a monitoring system that's bulletproof. Well, it's not totally bulletproof, but pretty good. Right, now the next picture may shock you. This is a Raspberry Pi monitoring system attached to the front of a magazine. If you bought the December 2015 copy of Magpie, you got one of these stuck to the front. And so you could argue that it's free, it doesn't cost anything. Because you would be reading a magazine anyway, wouldn't you? Now it gets really boring. Oh, God. Yep, this is tech. Yeah, of course it works. You know, we know that this works. This is Nagios Core. Of course it's going to work. And you probably never actually look at it in a hobby, small system monitoring environment. Just to prove that everything kind of works. The map stuff, one of the things I have tried to enforce when I put stuff in is I do try and get the parents right. Because there's enough things going wrong as it is without being told that everything's fallen over because an intermediate node has gone down. But it's just a tiny little server, I shall re-emphasize, tiny little server is doing that. Now we're going to go to the thing you might look at occasionally. So this is what's going on. And I'll put this in just because there's some curious things in here. I'm looking at the UPS, so I can see the battery voltage, I can see the power supply, I can see, there should be up here, power line online, so I know the input's online, and the yellow thing says that should it ever kick into the UPS, I've got 3 minutes. So you're going to have to run around a lot, obviously, in 3 minutes, but it's not necessarily true. And down here, we just, Proxmox, I'm just monitoring the essential pieces at the moment of Proxmox. And the essential pieces of Nutanix. But that'll get heavier and deeper as I go along, but it's just doing lots of different things. I'm also looking at my Bowlers Club website, but that's another problem. Because I like to know these things. And if we're doing all that, then of course I'm running MRTG on the same tiny server. This is my internet link. You never guess, would you? 8 meg. Bytes. It's a little busy. Lots of stuff going on. But all those things that you're used to having can all be done like that. Yes. So one of the things I mentioned is being alerted. I mean, I like to know what's going on in my garage, which isn't as bad as it sounds. So I used to use Google Mail, because Google Mail was dead easy. You just create a new phantom user, got the key, put it in, you can email. Then Google kind of worked out this was an avenue to spamming everybody in the world, and have made it a lot more difficult. So now I use simple email service under Amazon because it works and it's free. Those are the two criteria for a hobby system. Yeah, it works and it's free. Just a word to the wise, you might want to do that. It works for me. Now, in my cab, I've still got a bit of spare U. Not necessarily the finances yet, but I do have a couple of U to spare. So this is the next project. 20 compute blades, 80 cores, 160 gig of RAM, 10 terabytes of NVMe. All ready to go. It doesn't take too much power, to be fair. I really want to get my hands on that and do some terrible things, but I'm not quite sure how terrible they'll be, but it just looks like, oh yes, please. No, not bad. So I'm chugging along, and I'm coming to my final thoughts. And then I thought, let's just ask a silly question, shall we? Why is Nagios Core like a green frog? Now, some of you might know the answer. Yep, Kermit. Now, Kermit was a file transfer protocol first written in 1981. Frank de Cruz did a really nice job and created something that basically was rumoured to say that you could move data between two sources over two cans on a piece of wet string, and if the string dried out, it would still work. Amazingly enough, I'm trying to get images to impress my audience, and I thought, oh, I'll check to see if the book's still available. It is. You can still buy Kermit the Book on Amazon, and that includes the source code on the CD inside it. It's just, and to give you a kind of feel for it, this thing that we've got demonstrated here is an interface between the user and an HP 3000. Now, not many people have seen those in their day. It was just like, oh, you could do anything. And that brings me on to the real point. Now, I'm not going to ask you to read it. That would be insane. But this basically is a list of where Kermit is supported. Now, this is a product you have to compile, starting with the Acorn RISC and ending with the USys U6000. And in the middle is more or less every piece of hardware you could ever have nightmares over. It's quite a lot. So, what's Kermit and Nagios got? Well, it's got a book. Well, it's many books. I just put that one up for the last. So yeah, it works. But the thing is, come on, you can. Yes, it's flipped on, isn't it? God. This, well, for my free, my $5, I can monitor anything. So all those names we saw on the previous slide, you could monitor that. So that's effectively why it's like a green frog. It has exactly the same impact. It can monitor everything with a very low footprint and do stuff. Now this one will make somebody unhappy. So, I got a copy of Nagios Services Platform. I messed around, as you do. And I thought, this is very nice. Perhaps I can put this on the Raspberry Pi. Have it carry, And no, I'm not going to wave it in the air again. I have a very small system. So I've started to look at this and I'm thinking, the equivalent Raspberry Pi build is quite small. However, it does cost money. I cannot tell a lie. This configuration is going to cost you about $95. which is quite a lot, but could be fun. Could be fun. But I'm just playing with it at the moment. I'm using, if you remember, way back when, that ESXi cluster. I'm using that to help me do the compile and change and work on this before I push it out to the world. Yes, I didn't bring the other part. Could be fun. Right, you can breathe in now because I'm getting close to the end. Now, as you may have noticed, I'm an extremely old man and I might not be back again. So I thought, I wanted to share some of the stuff with you. Now, these are two of the most influential books I have read in my 45 years. And have got me out of a lot of trouble. Mythical Man Month is an absolute classic. I think everybody knows about this. It's about the creation of the IBM MVT operating system and how projects have to be managed and monitored and driven. And while there is no silver bullet, well, any team with more than 5 people is a waste of time in this development. And this is, yes, Eric Raymond's. He had a piece of software that kind of grew out of control, basically. He just did one thing, and then he did another, then he did another. And you compare, as in the cathedral model is here. Yeah. You build it, you design it top to bottom, every layer, every module, every interface, and then you write it. And this is, it does kind of file transfers, and maybe I'll make it into a terminal emulator. Oh, it could be a file server, and bits come in. And hopefully now and then, bits come out as well because they don't work. So this got me thinking. I thought, well, I'll just add a little bit more interest. I once did have to write some fairly horrible microcode for a common server. And the Solar New Machine sort of describes the hideousness of making a completely new computer from the firmware level up. It is horrible. There's a lovely phrase towards the end of it where one of the developers who was doing microcodes quit his job and he just wrote a post-it note on his desk that said, "That's it, too much. I'm not going to consider any time unit less than a season." Because, I mean, I once had to write something like that. You had 16 lines of code, 16 instructions, and then you lost control because the system went on to the next line. So it really drives you mad and concentrates your mind. The other one is this. This is the one that teaches you to think so far outside the box you come back in again. This is just out there. If you ever get to read it and understand the relationship between a bowl of petunias and a blue whale, which there is one, it doesn't end well for the whale. But it's just like, wow, mind, gone, don't understand. All these things I used to understand may not be true. Now we're getting to the question. My question first. Right at the beginning of this presentation, I showed you some of the things I did before I built a data center. And one of them was my sports car. So, can anybody tell me the letters that are on the side of my sports car?
All right, here you go, JJ.
Was it M-O-G?
Correct. It's a Morgan, and you are today's winner, sir. Enjoy it. Yes, it's a Morgan. They're called Moggies in the UK and MOG on the side. So this is the prize. An Nagios input. So it's a Pi Zero with a Power over Ethernet header. So basically, you can just take it somewhere and plug it into the Ethernet. Up it comes. Or you actually put the power in, the Ethernet side, and up it comes again. It's all set up to run. That's all you do. You just connect to it and then manually fiddle with it. There's a build for that. There you go. Congratulations, sir. Yeah, just enjoy it. So that's a kind of set of stories and experiences related to my hobby system in a data center as monitored by Nagios. There are lots of other things that go on in there. But I suppose you should learn something. The whole idea of this was to get everybody to have one lesson. Yeah, you learn one thing. It may be about cable ties. It may be about Kermit at the front, which incidentally, Henson Associates did license Kermit to actually use that name, because they had to, which is very kind of them. As long as you learned something, it's been worth doing. Thank you very much.
You just watched a presentation from the 2025 Nagios World Conference. If you'd like to learn more about future conferences, go to nagios.com/conference. So many things happen here in person, and we would love it if you visited our headquarters in St. Paul, Minnesota. While you're on our channel, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? So much Nagios content is constantly being created. Thanks for watching.